Hello everyone, Mr. Happy here, and in this video we're going to be going over some recent interviews that Naoki Yoshida did with several of the Japanese media outlets. I believe it's GameWatch, Dengeki, and Famitsu, I think are the three that it did it with. Now, of course, thank you as per usual to Marco for doing a translation. He sent those to me in the wee hours of the morning while I was sleeping, so thank you. I'm really glad to see you still doing stuff with Gamer Escape because it's all been translated to English, so we haven't had to see a translation in a while. I'm really happy to see it. Anyway, I've already read through most of the details here, and it is some quite juicy information. The GameWatch one here is like properly translated with like Q and A, whereas the Dengeki and Famitsu ones are broken up into basically just highlight points. So anyway, let's get right into it. So the first thing on this Q&A is the cross-roll system. They do mention it again. It is still in the works. So they talk about the battle system revamp. They're removing the additional skills, the cross-class skills we have now, and introducing the new system called role shared actions. Not limiting the question to only samurai, other DPS support actions will also be looked into. Many actions that are useful and shared at the moment will be put into the role shared action category. Therefore, it's better to talk about role shared actions rather than only samurai. So the big thing there is the current ones that are most commonly used by DPS, it seems that they will remain in the cross-roll functionality. I'd imagine that's things like Invigorate, Swift Cast, Cleric Stance, things like that, assuming any of those abilities aren't pruned or removed going into the expansion overall. One ability I'm curious about is Goad, because it is technically a cross-class skill for Rogue, that only I think Gladiators and Marauders can also cross-class. So I'm wondering if Goad is going to hit that, or if Goad is going to stay a Rogue / Ninja specific ability. Really looking forward to seeing that. Whew. So moving forward, spoke a little fast for it being so early. Let's see. This time you implement only DPS jobs. This is just him talking about their justification for 2 DPS. We've heard it before. We don't need to hear it again. This is them introducing Gosetsu from the trailer and how we'll see him in 3.5 Part 2. We already know about all that. They talk about how there's going to be a lot of new characters popping up into the main story. The Scions will still be there, but there's a lot of new characters for them to introduce and discuss. The next one was other countries, except for Doma, Hingashi, and the Azum Steppes. They said that there's a lot they haven't shown about Authored yet, which makes sense considering we can see on the map there's a lot of areas we won't get to go to right away. So we might find out more about them in the 4.x series, though. We'll just have to wait and see. They also talk about the general size of the area. So the combined surface area of all the areas in the new expansion will be about the same as Heavensward, but there's going to be diving and swimming. There's still unannounced areas, so expect it to be a really large scale, even though it's going to be about the same surface area as Heavensward had. Oh, this one's funny. Of course you'll be able to teleport, but watch out for those teleport costs. Yeah, there's in the other interview, there's another comment about the teleport costs, so we'll make sure to get into that as well. They also straight up ask, we can see Genbu, Byakko, Seiryu, and Ho on the map. That's what we would call Suzaku, of course. Will they appear in the series of bosses like the Warring Triad? Great, very straightforward question, GameWatch. He said he won't tell us. Just like Yoshivi, he's not going to tell us if we're going to fight them as bosses yet. But he did say that there's a lot of updated aspects to the map, and he hopes that the lore heads out there at this, Anonymous, are really busy dissecting it and speculating on the different reasons or the different places along the map. Now, this was exciting news for me. It seems like a really weird thing to get excited, but this question, the city of Kugane seems as huge as Ishgard. Will it be split into multiple areas? No. Kugane will be the same size as Ishgard, but it will just be one area. That makes me so happy to hear because all of the main cities suffer from this problem where they're relatively large cities, but they're split into these halves that you have to zone between, and it creates this sort of disconnect within the city itself. So for me personally, I'm happy to hear that Kugane itself, even though it'll be the same size, it's just going to be one large zone. I don't know why, that's just exciting news for me, because I've always been like minorly troubled by that in the past. Talking about endgame, will Omega be split into normal and savage? Yes, it will be, but they do have another piece of content planned for people who finish the final fight in the savage difficulty. We're obviously expecting it to just be a 3rd difficulty, maybe it's something else entirely. I'm willing to bet it's just a 3rd difficulty, but it's something. They also said they're going to be making changes to the drop system. Now, I believe in one of the other interviews, they're a little bit more specific about this. It seems possible that they would make it so that he specifically says either in this interview or in the other one that he doesn't like it when groups go in and they, let's say they have no casters, but like they get double casting drop and it just feels like crap. So what that kind of implies, if that's what he really doesn't like, is hopefully it'll be more like, I think Star Wars The Old Republic does this, where you need to have a job that can at least one job present in the raid group that can need. And this is to counteract the fact that they keep adding new jobs and, they're not always going to be sharing all the gear, or there may be job-specific gear. It's just, honestly, even without even considering new jobs, it's just kind of annoying in the first place. So that would be a nice change to the loot system going forward to ensure that, yeah, you're still going to get useless loot, but at least it wasn't useless loot that absolutely nobody can use. At least one person, at least once, will be able to use it. They also spoke about how there was no talk about PvP content. They said it's such large scale for the PvP content that it probably will not be available right at 4.0 launch. So while they will talk about it prior to the expansion launch, it probably won't be available there. It's like, it's literally, it says it's involving the revamp of all PvP aspects, and there's a lot to it that they've put in place. We have the morale system, we have materia, the PvP materia for whatever reason. We have all these things in PvP that just don't matter right now. So I'm really glad to see that the reason why they haven't had time to explain it yet is because they literally don't have enough time on stage at the fan festivals to explain all the changes coming to PvP. Now that's going to be a wrap up for the Game Watch interview, but luckily there was another interview over here. New Stormblood information from Famitsu and Dengeki. Now, unlike the last one, like I said, where it was formatted in Q&A, this one's just bullet points. So let's get to it. So from the Dengeki interview, we learned that they are going to be talking about changes to parry, accuracy, blocking, piety, etc. All the main stats and secondary stats are going to be seeing some sort of change. They're not happy with, I guess, any of the stats in the game currently from another translation. Expect it at a later live letter. We don't know which one, but at a future live letter, they'll talk about that. They plan on making updates to the company crafting system. Because of underwater, that might even include Free Company's submarines, since a new feature will be underwater exploration. I'd imagine it wouldn't be like Diadem, where you have to discover, the underwater area and then you all go there. I don't imagine it'll be like that. I imagine it's just like the airship exploration minus the Diadem, where people would like get dusk leathers and stuff. New mounts for tanks will be implemented to try and help incentivize people to keep playing tanks. There's no Grand Company in Kugane, but there's a different kind of organization there. We'll see what that ends up meaning. Teleports from one continent will be costly, but they're trying to make it so that it will not exceed 999 gil. They said most likely, not it won't. So, still expensive. Better get those Aetheryte tickets. They'll show off the limit breaks for the 2 new jobs in the new benchmark, which for those of you who may have doubted, yes, there will be another benchmark. Samurai will most likely have the Midare Setsu Getsuka for its limit break. So I did some research about that, and apparently and I'm butchering it, the Setsu Getsuka, it's something like when you take all 3 of the stances they mentioned earlier, the moon, the flower, and I can't remember the other one, and you chain them all together in some way to create like this ultimate style. I guess that's sort of what it is, but I mean, that's cool. Everyone thought it would be Yanmato, or Zanmato, but I think that this sounds cooler because Zanmato is not going to be one-shotting people as an LB3, so kind of hard to expect it. And of course, Gilgamesh might appear in the 4.x. And now when they say might involving like Hildebrand Gilgamesh, usually means they will. So I'm hoping we see Gilgamesh again, because it has been a long time since we've gotten to enjoy our friend Gilgamesh. Now from the Famitsu interview, they talk about a little bit more about culture and story background, but there are some other important things. They talk about, we'll find out the main reason why Alamigo and Doma fell, because it wasn't just because of the overwhelming might of the Empire. Authored is not just based on Japanese culture, it's based on all of Asia. They're making small cities like Idleshire and Revenant's Toll for players to gather at, but there will be something different about them this time. Thank you for being so specific. Anyway, there will be some kind of focus on the Isle of Val. For those who don't remember, the Isle of Val was reported to have been destroyed back in the 2.x series, Kryl being the lone survivor of the Isle of Val incident. So we're going to actually find out what happened to the Isle of Val. They're also planning some Oriental glamour gear for 4.0. Now, they mentioned some instance and raid gear might have an Oriental design as well, but they also mention at some point in a different translation that that some of it's not going to be class-specific. Obviously, they want some non-class-specific Oriental style gear, so that way people can enjoy it regardless. Shirogane will have apartments. However, the moving system will not apply to apartments. They're focusing that on houses. So if you have an apartment currently, you're not going to be able to move that exact apartment over to Shirogane. But more apartments, I mean, we all remember there's like tens of thousands of those things. So it's good to know that there's going to be a lot more, at least in some degree, housing available. The new tomestones and raids will be released a few weeks after the release of the expansion. We expected this. Red Mage will share gear with casters, and its main stat will be intelligence. No more confusion about this, because they were, just for some reason, when they first mentioned Red Mage, they were just so ambiguous and just not specific about it. But we all knew, like, what else was it going to be? Like, I get that caster gear doesn't traditionally look like Red Mage gear, but, like, we all knew that this was the most likely scenario. It's just good to have them come out and say it. I'm glad they just came out and said it. And Samurai's Sen system, which we discussed before, a lot of people thought it might be like Ninja Mudras or Monk Stances, is a Samurai Sen system is a completely new rotation system. If it's similar to anything, it's Monk Stances, but it's completely different from Ninja Mudras. If I had to take a guess, and I guessed this before, I'd imagine that the 3 stances don't necessarily have to be done in a specific order like Monk Stances. Like, imagine if you could go 1, 2, 3 to create an effect, or 1, 3, 2 to create an effect. And it's all the 3 same abilities, but the order in which you completed them ends in a different result. I imagine that's playing on the Final Fantasy XI skill chain mentality that I'm sure some people have an expectation for Samurai. But that's what I kind of draw from that little description right there. So hopefully we can get more definitive information about that probably in April or May. But it allows you to be more flexible, I feel, and it sounds a little bit more involved. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. And that is all the information that came out of the separate interviews. Let me just scroll down past the ads of how to make sure you don't have cracked feet. Great ads to scroll past, by the way. And that's it. Thank you, everyone, for watching this video. I'm actually live streaming the recording of this video, so now I need to go actually do my live stream. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share. And stay tuned for all the latest Final Fantasy XIV news about Stormblood and all that other stuff. Thank you for coming by, and until next time, take care.